Okay, so Avatar The Last Airbender, the live action version of it that came out on Netflix, is getting mixed reviews, and I know clearly why. So there are these two sections of people. First are the ones who have seen the animated series, the source material, like me, and are a big fan of the show. Like you can see, I am also a big fan. There's that bald guy over there, his Aang, Avatar The Last Airbender. So the people who have seen the animated version are not very pleased with what they have pulled off in the live action version. But on the other hand, the people who are not seen the animated version, so those people are really liking what Netflix provided with the live action version of it. And I was the one who was not really one of those people who really loved the live action version, but I was a bit skeptical of it. I did acknowledge some of the changes though, that there are some changes which are very bad, which doesn't make any sense, and they actually have the potential to destroy some of the best plot points or best character arcs or best story arcs in the second season. But we'll talk about those later in this video. But on the other hand, there are some changes, some minor changes that really give so much depth to some of the characters. Like if I think from the top of my head, the entire story that they added with the 41st division to Zuko's character, with Zuko's backstory, that was full marks to them. And I think the most emotional scene which was really executed beautifully, was with Iroh and Luten. That was such a beautiful scene. It was the same emotional song that we got in the animated version.
Drifting in the foam, little soldier boy, come marching home.
Some of such scenes actually made the animated version a very good entity in its own way as compared to the animated version, and that is the reason why it actually appealed more to the people who have not seen the animated version and who does not know that how these things actually pan out in the animated version. But these things were fresh and I really appreciated that. But on the other hand, the storyline which I had talked about earlier, which is going to destroy some of the best storylines or best arcs in the second season, was the introduction of this guy. Yes, this owl. Yes, he's the same owl who is the keeper of the library, and I don't want to give many spoilers, but the people who have seen the animated version know what character arc or what story arc I'm talking about, and I think it's not gonna happen. But come on, Netflix has to find a way in the second season to bring back that arc which I'm talking about. But okay, let's move on to Appa and Momo. Appa and Momo are so crucial, are so inherently crucial to the animated series that I can't even understand why they minimized the scenes with Appa and Momo in the live action version. I know maybe because of the effects and all, maybe because of the VFX and CGI, but please dude, that they were such an integral part of the show. They are not just there in the show, they are actually core members of the team, and they actually have their own heart, their own storylines, their own connections, their own themes of love, sympathy, and all those things come together with Appa and Momo along with our main characters. But they hardly touched upon what Appa and Momo mean to Aang. They hardly did that, and that actually broke my heart. Then again, I did not like how they treated Avatar Roku. If anyone has seen the animated version, the introduction of Roku was such a big moment in the entire first season. It was such a huge moment. That entire sequence was just legendary, just epic. But yeah, no, they just made Roku a funny guy, and he was not even funny. I was actually furious at that moment at how badly they treated Avatar Roku. Not good, Netflix. Not at all good. But now if I talk about some of the changes that they made and which were very good to the entire story, and that also helped to give a lot of depth into an 8-episode series, that was definitely how they in fact started the entire series. They started 100 years before, when the war actually happened, and why that war happened, how that war happened, and how that genocide of the air nomads took place. That was such a beautiful start. I was really hooked into it, and I could clearly see that which direction or which tone that they are going to use. They were going to use an out and out dark tone. But this also robbed us with a lot of comedy and a lot of side missions that Aang and the gang took in the animated series, but we'll talk about this later. But again, how beautifully they showed all the bendings, how beautifully showed all the fights, how beautifully they introduced air nomads people, and also how beautifully they introduced Fire Nation people. That was also so nicely done. Again, coming back to the genocide, it was brutal, it was very emotional, it was very brutal, and along with that, all the bendings that they showed was pretty good. Aang's relationship with Kyatso was so beautifully explored in this season, and I felt it had more depth as compared to the animated series. Please tell me down in the comments what do you think about that all Kyotso storyline. Then I want to really talk about, like just the point I mentioned, that Aang didn't go on any side missions. Yes, and that was a big part of Aang's personality, because at the end of the day, he's just a 12-year-old kid. But yeah, that specific, feature of Aang was not at all explored in this series, and that actually gave it even darker tone and even serious tone, and it was like meant for adults only. On the other hand, the animated version was meant for children. But at the end of the day, I realized it's actually good that they cannot replicate what happened in the animated series, because now as fans we know we know that it's impossible to recreate the animated version, and it is actually a good thing for us because we have that Aang in our hearts at a very sacred place, and no one can touch that. So we should be even grateful for that, and we should also embrace the new possibilities that comes on with the source material in the live action form, because you can't watch that animated series for your entire life, and those stories are so good that those stories should be told to new audiences, to variety of audiences. And there are a lot of people who don't even see anime, like me myself. I don't watch anime. This is actually the one exception, and it has this whole story behind it. As I said, I'll explain that in a different video. But coming back to the point, we should embrace the live action version as well, and just try and watch it unobjectifyingly and not comparing to the animated version. I know it is very difficult, borderline impossible, but we still can do that. And if we do that, I think the live action version still holds its ground pretty well. There, as I said, there are a lot of emotionally elevating scenes. There are a lot of good changes that they did as compared to the animated version, and it has its own identity. The live action version has its own identity, and they actually delivered pretty nicely. So I think the live action version holds its ground itself, but the animated version is still the undisputed king, and we as fans should be happy about it, that we are getting a live action version of it, which is good, and we still have that animated version who no one can touch. Please share your thoughts in the comment section, and as always, thank you so much for watching.